He defended the enemy's child. Now the alien mother wants him by her side. The morning sun cast long shadows across the broken buildings of Settlement 7. Commander Marcus Chen walked carefully through the rubble, his boots crunching on pieces of crystal and metal. Behind him, 3 soldiers from his unit followed in single file, their weapons ready. "Sir, this place gives me the creeps," whispered Private Johnson, looking around at the destroyed Zephyrian structures. The buildings were unlike anything humans built. They looked like giant crystals that had grown from the ground, now shattered and dark. Marcus nodded but said nothing. The war between humans and the Zephyrians had been going on for 3 years now. Both sides had lost many good people. Both sides had reasons to hate each other. The settlement had been bombed 2 days ago during a human airstrike. Intelligence reports said it was empty, but Marcus always checked these places himself. Sometimes the reports were wrong. Sometimes there were surprises. "Movement, 2 o'clock," called Sergeant Martinez from behind him. Marcus raised his hand, and the team stopped. They all listened carefully. The sound came again, a soft musical noise that seemed sad and scared. "What is that?" Johnson asked, gripping his rifle tighter. "Sounds like crying," said Corporal Kim. Marcus frowned. The sound was coming from a pile of broken crystal near what used to be a large building. He moved closer, motioning for his team to spread out and watch for danger. As they got nearer, the sound became clearer. It was definitely crying, but unlike any human crying Marcus had ever heard. The sobs came in musical notes, rising and falling like a sad song. "Sir, we should call this in," Martinez said quietly. "Could be a trap." Marcus held up his hand again. Something about the crying made his chest feel tight. It reminded him of his little nephew back on Earth, the way Tommy cried when he was scared and alone. Moving carefully around a large piece of broken crystal, Marcus saw something that made him stop breathing for a moment. A small Zephyrian child was trapped under a fallen beam. The child's body was made of pale blue crystal, like all Zephyrians, but much smaller and more delicate than the adult warriors Marcus had seen in battle. The little being's leg was pinned, and there were cracks running through its crystalline skin where it had been hurt. The child looked up at Marcus with large, glowing eyes. The crying stopped immediately, replaced by fear. The little Zephyrian tried to pull away, but the beam had it trapped. "Jesus," Johnson breathed. "It's just a kid." Marcus stared at the child. In all his years of fighting, he had never seen a young Zephyrian before. The enemy had always been tall, powerful warriors in battle armor. This little one looked fragile and terrified. "Orders are clear, sir," Martinez said firmly. "No contact with enemy civilians. We call it in and move on." Marcus knew the rules. He also knew what usually happened when they called in Zephyrian survivors. The intelligence teams had their methods. Most of the time, the Zephyrians never made it back to their own people. The child made another soft sound, this time not crying, but something that sounded almost like a question. Its glowing eyes stayed fixed on Marcus's face. "Sir?" Kim asked. "What do we do?" Marcus looked around at his team. These were good soldiers who had followed him through many dangerous missions. They trusted his judgment. But they also expected him to follow orders and think about human lives first. "Johnson, watch the perimeter," Marcus said slowly. "Martinez, Kim, help me move this beam." "Sir, I really think we should—" Martinez started. "We're getting the kid out," Marcus said firmly. "That's an order." Johnson shook his head but moved to watch for enemy patrols. Martinez and Kim exchanged looks but positioned themselves on either side of the fallen beam. Marcus knelt down next to the trapped child. Up close, he could see that the little Zephyrian was badly hurt. The crystal that made up its leg was cracked, and a slow, glowing liquid was leaking out, probably their version of blood. "Hey there, little one," Marcus said softly, not sure if the child could understand him. We're going to help you, okay? The child's eyes grew wider. It made a series of quick, musical sounds that Marcus's translator earpiece couldn't quite process. But the tone seemed less frightened than before. "On 3, Marcus told his men. 1, 2, 3. They lifted the beam together. It was heavier than it looked, and Marcus could feel his muscles strain. The child immediately pulled its leg free and scrambled backward, then stopped and looked at them with confusion. Marcus opened his medical kit and pulled out supplies. The child flinched when he moved closer but didn't try to run away. "I know you don't understand me," Marcus said quietly, "but I'm going to help with those cuts. Okay?" Working carefully, Marcus cleaned the cracks in the child's crystalline skin and applied medical gel that was supposed to work on both human and alien biology. The child made soft musical sounds the whole time, but sat still and let him work. "Sir," Johnson called urgently, "we've got incoming Zephyrian ships, 3 of them moving fast." Marcus looked up. In the distance, he could see the strange, crystal-like ships approaching. "They would be here in minutes." "We need to go now," Martinez said. Marcus looked down at the child, then at the approaching ships. The smart thing to do was leave immediately. The child was no longer trapped and could probably make it to safety when its people arrived. But as Marcus started to stand up, the little Zephyrian reached out and touched his hand with one small crystal finger. The touch was warm and tingly, and somehow Marcus understood that the child was saying thank you. "Sir," Kim shouted, "those ships have weapons locked on our position." Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of running, he picked up the child and carried it to the center of the clearing. Then he activated his emergency communicator and broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commander Marcus Chen of the Human Colonial Forces," he said loudly. "I have an injured Zephyrian child here. I am not armed and mean no harm. I repeat, I have your child and want to return it safely." His team stared at him like he had lost his mind. "Sir, what are you doing?" Martinez demanded. The Zephyrian ships stopped their approach and hovered nearby. Marcus could feel their weapons still pointed at him, but they hadn't fired. Marcus looked, down at the child in his arms, then back at his soldiers. "Something that should have been done a long time ago," he said. The child looked up at him with those glowing eyes and made a soft musical sound that somehow seemed like trust. The 3 Zephyrian ships hung in the air like frozen lightning. Marcus could feel the heat from their energy weapons even from a distance. His heart pounded as he held the small child against his chest, but he forced himself to stand perfectly. "Still." "Sir, we need to move," Johnson whispered urgently. "They're going to blast us into nothing." Marcus shook his head slightly. "Nobody moves. Keep your weapons down." The child in his arms made soft musical sounds and pointed at the largest ship. Its crystal body was warm against Marcus's uniform, and he could feel it trembling with either fear or excitement. Suddenly, the air around them began to shimmer. A bright light appeared in the clearing, growing larger and brighter until Marcus had to squint his eyes. When the light faded, a figure stood before them that made all 4 humans take a step backward. The Zephyrian was massive, easily 3 times taller than Marcus. Her body was made of deep purple crystal that seemed to contain moving stars. Energy crackled around her like controlled lightning, and her eyes glowed with a fierce, dangerous light. This was clearly not just any Zephyrian. This was someone very important and very powerful. "That's a high crystal arc," Martinez breathed. "We're all dead." The giant alien looked at Marcus and the child, then let out a sound that was part roar, part music, and completely terrifying. The ground beneath their feet vibrated with the force of it. More lights began appearing around the clearing as additional Zephyrian soldiers materialized. Marcus felt his legs want to run, but he stayed where he was. The child in his arms suddenly became very excited, making rapid musical sounds and reaching toward the giant alien. the high crystallark's glowing, eyes fixed on Marcus. When she spoke, her voice was deep and harmonic, like a church organ made of thunder. His translator earpiece struggled to convert her words. "Human creature," the translation crackled, "you hold what belongs to me. Return my offspring, or face the consequences of your entire species." Marcus swallowed hard. So this wasn't just any child. This was the daughter or son of one of the most powerful Zephyrians in their empire. He was probably holding the alien equivalent of a princess. "I mean no harm to your child," Marcus said, his voice somehow staying steady. "I found it trapped and injured. I only wanted to help." The high crystallark's energy field flared brighter, and Marcus felt the heat increase. Several of the Zephyrian soldiers raised weapons that looked like they could melt steel. "You speak lies, flesh creature. Your kind brings only destruction and death. You probably caused the injury yourself." The child in Marcus's arms suddenly began speaking rapidly in its musical language, gesturing toward Marcus and then toward the pile of rubble where they had found it. The little one's voice grew louder and more insistent. The high crystallark listened, her glowing eyes never leaving Marcus's face. As the child continued talking, something strange happened. The dangerous energy around the adult alien began to dim slightly. "What is the small one saying?" Johnson whispered. Marcus wished he knew. All he could do was stand there and hope that, whatever the child was telling its parent, it was good news for him and his team. Finally, the child finished speaking. The clearing fell silent except for the humming of Zephyrian technology. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. The high crystallark took a step closer. Marcus had to tilt his head back to look at her face. Up close, he could see that her crystal body was incredibly complex, with patterns and structures that seemed to shift and change as he watched. "My offspring tells me an interesting story, human," she said slowly. "It says that when the great noise came and the building crystals fell, you did not run. It says you moved the heavy stone with your soft flesh companions and freed its trapped limb." Marcus nodded. "Yes, that's true. It also says," the alien continued, "that when it was afraid and making pain sounds, you gave it water from your own container and made strange comfort noises until the fear-shaking stopped." Marcus remembered humming an old lullaby his mother used to sing to him. He hadn't even realized he was doing it. "It says," the high crystallark's voice grew quieter, "that you used your healing supplies on its wounds, even though you had reason to hate all of our kind." The giant alien was now close enough that Marcus could have reached out and touched her if he wanted to, which he definitely did not want to do. "Your offspring was hurt and scared," Marcus said simply. "It needed help. That's all." Something remarkable happened then. The high crystallark's energy field changed completely. Instead of dangerous heat, Marcus felt something warm and gentle, like standing in sunlight. The alien reached out with one massive hand. Marcus tensed, ready to die, but instead of crushing him, she placed her hand very gently on his shoulder. The touch was warm and tingly, and somehow Marcus understood that this was not a threat. "I am High Crystallark Thyssara of the Seventh." "Crystal Fleet," she said, her voice now carrying a different tone entirely. "This small one is Zislin, my first offspring and heart crystal. What you have done today has no name in either of our languages." Marcus looked up at her, confused. "I don't understand. You showed honor to my blood crystal when your species and mine are locked in death struggle. You gave aid when you could have given harm. You protected the helpless when you had every reason to destroy." Thyssara's hand pressed slightly more firmly on Marcus's shoulder, and suddenly Marcus could hear gasps from the Zephyrian soldiers around them. "What's happening?" Kim asked nervously. "She's giving him the touch of highest respect," one of the Zephyrian soldiers said in accented English. "This is unprecedented." Thyssara looked at Marcus's team, then at her own soldiers. Let it be known throughout both fleets that this human warrior has shown greater honor than many of our own kind. The debt of life preservation cannot be forgotten or ignored. She gently took her child from Marcus's arms. Little Zicilin made happy musical sounds and hugged its mother, but then reached back toward Marcus with one small hand. Your name will be remembered, Marcus Chen, of the human colonial forces, Thaisara said formally. When the star songs are sung of this day, they will tell how one human chose compassion over conquest. She paused and looked directly into his eyes. This changes things between our peoples. I do not know how, but it changes everything. With that, she and her soldiers began to fade from view. But before they disappeared completely, little Zicilin made one last musical sound that Marcus's translator finally managed to interpret. Thank you, Crystal Friend. As the Zephyrian ships departed, Marcus stood in the empty clearing with his team, wondering what he had just started. Sir, Martinez said quietly, I think we're in for some very interesting times. Marcus nodded, still feeling the warm tingle where the High Crystallarch had touched his shoulder. He had just made contact with one of humanity's most dangerous enemies, and somehow it felt like the beginning of something important, something that might change the war itself. 3 weeks had passed since the incident at Settlement 7, and Marcus sat in a cold metal chair facing 5 stern-looking officers. The military tribunal room was gray and unwelcoming, with bright lights that made everything look harsh and unfriendly. General Patterson, a woman with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes, shuffled through papers on her desk. Commander Chen, you stand accused of disobeying direct orders, making unauthorized contact with enemy forces, and compromising military security. How do you plead? Marcus straightened his shoulders. I acted according to my conscience, ma'am. I would do the same thing again. Colonel Williams, sitting to the general's left, shook his head. Commander, your conscience isn't part of military protocol. You put your entire unit at risk for one alien child. That alien child, Marcus replied calmly, was injured and trapped. It needed help. The enemy has killed thousands of our people, said Captain Morrison from the far end of the table. They've destroyed entire colonies. And you're worried about one of their kids? Marcus looked at each officer in turn. These were good people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. But sometimes good people could lose sight of what made them good in the first place. Yes, sir, I am worried about that child, because if we stop caring about innocent lives, even enemy lives, then what are we fighting for? General Patterson leaned forward. We're fighting for human survival, Commander. The Zephyrians have made that very clear. Have they? Marcus asked. Or have we both been so busy fighting that we forgot to try understanding each other? The room fell silent. Marcus could hear the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of ships taking off from the base landing pad. Your actions have created a political nightmare, Colonel Williams said finally. Since your little rescue mission, Zephyrian forces in this sector have completely stopped attacking. Our intelligence teams don't know what to make of it. Marcus felt a small spark of hope. Maybe it means they're thinking about things differently too. Or maybe they're planning something bigger, Captain Morrison countered. A massive attack when we least expect it. Before anyone could respond, an aide rushed into the room and whispered something to General Patterson. The general's eyebrows shot up and she looked at Marcus with surprise. It seems, she said slowly, that we have an unexpected visitor requesting to address this tribunal. The main screen on the wall flickered to life, showing the interior of what looked like a crystal palace. And there, filling most of the screen with her massive purple form, was High Crystallarch Thaisara. The officers. At the table, all stood up quickly, unsure of proper protocol when an enemy leader suddenly appeared during a military trial. Human leaders, Thaisara's voice resonated through the room's speakers. I request permission to speak regarding the one called Marcus Chen. General Patterson recovered first. This is highly irregular. We are conducting an internal military proceeding. The proceeding concerns one who has directly affected relations between our peoples, Thisara replied. Therefore, it affects me as well. Marcus stared at the screen. In the 3 weeks since their encounter, he had wondered many times what the High Crystallarch was thinking. Now he was about to find out. Very well, General Patterson said stiffly. You may speak. Thisara's image shifted as she moved closer to her own communication device. Marcus could see little Zislin playing in the background, apparently healthy and happy. The warrior Marcus Chen showed honor to my offspring when he had every reason. To show hatred, she began. In our culture, such an act creates bonds that cannot be broken by politics or war. Colonel Williams leaned forward. What exactly are you saying? I am saying that your warrior understands something both our species have forgotten in 3 years of bloodshed. He sees children before enemies. He sees beings who hurt and need help, not monsters to be destroyed. Captain Morrison frowned. That doesn't change the fact that he violated military orders. Your orders, Thisara said, her voice taking on a musical quality that made the room's crystal decorations hum, are based on fear and misunderstanding. Both our peoples have lost many lives because we chose to fight instead of trying to communicate. General Patterson crossed her arms. Communication is difficult when your people keep attacking our colonies. And my people say the same about yours, Thisara replied. Each attack leads to revenge, which leads to more attacks. The cycle continues, because no one chooses to break it. Marcus found himself leaning forward, fascinated by this conversation between leaders who had been enemies for so long. What are you proposing? General Patterson asked. Thisara's eyes seemed to look directly at Marcus through the screen. I formally request that Marcus Chen be assigned as a cultural liaison between our peoples. He would work directly with my command structure to develop new methods of communication and understanding. The silence in the room was so complete that Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. You want one of our officers to work with you? Colonel Williams asked, his voice full of disbelief. Not just any officer, Thisara clarified. This specific, human who proved that compassion can exist even in the middle of war. If peace is to exist between our species, it must begin with those who remember what peace looks like. Captain Morrison shook his head. This could be a trap, a way to get intelligence about our operations. If I wanted intelligence about your operations, Thisara said, with what might have been amusement, I would simply take it. We are not asking because we are weak. General Patterson looked at Marcus. What do you think, Commander? This would be completely unprecedented. You would be alone among aliens who have been our enemies for 3 years. Marcus thought about little Zislin's glowing eyes and the way Thisara had gently touched his shoulder. He thought about all the human and Zephyrian soldiers who had died in this war, and all the ones who might die if it continued. I think, he said slowly, that someone needs to try something different. If there's even a small chance this could lead to peace, isn't it worth the risk? The risk to you personally would be enormous, Colonel Williams pointed out. The risk to everyone if we keep fighting is even bigger, Marcus replied. Thisara's voice filled the room again. I offer my personal guarantee of his safety. Harm to Marcus Chen would be considered harm to my own family crystal. General Patterson rubbed her temples. I need time to consider this, and I'll need approval from the highest levels of command. Time is acceptable, Thisara said, but do not take too long. Every day this war continues, more children on both sides lose their parents. The screen went dark, leaving the human officers staring at each other in stunned silence. Well, General Patterson said finally, this is definitely not how I expected this tribunal to go. Marcus stood up. General, if you approve this assignment, I'm ready to accept it. You realize, she said, that many people will call you a traitor, Some might even try to stop you. Marcus nodded. Some people called the first humans who tried to make peace with other human tribes traitors too. But someone had to take the first step. General Patterson looked at him for a long moment. I'll make the calls, Commander. God help us all. But I'll make the calls. As Marcus left the tribunal room, he wondered if he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life, or if he was about to help end a war that should never have started in the first place. Marcus had been living aboard the Zephyrian flagship for 2 months, and he still wasn't used to the way everything hummed. The ship itself was alive in ways that human technology couldn't match. The walls pulsed gently like a heartbeat, and lights flowed through crystal channels like glowing blood through veins. His quarters were strange but comfortable. A circular room with walls that could change from clear to opaque with just a thought. The furniture grew from the floor when he needed it, and sank back down when he didn't. It was like living inside a living jewel. "Good morning, crystal friend Marcus," came a cheerful musical voice from the doorway. Marcus turned to see little Ghislaine bouncing into his room. The young Zephyrian had appointed itself as his unofficial teacher and guide. Over the past weeks, Marcus had learned that Ghislaine was curious about everything, especially humans. "Good morning, Ghislaine," Marcus replied, smiling. "Ready for another lesson?" The child's crystal body flickered with happy colors. "Yes. Today you learn about the deep song. Mother says it is important for peacemaking." Marcus nodded. He had been learning Zephyrian culture piece by piece, and each discovery amazed him. These beings weren't the cold, emotionless monsters that human propaganda portrayed. They felt things deeply, sometimes too deeply. Their emotions resonated through their crystal bodies like music through instruments. They walked together through the ship's corridors. Other Zephyrians they passed would nod respectfully to Marcus, though he could sense their curiosity. He was probably the first human most of them had ever seen up close. In the ship's central chamber, Thisara was waiting. The High Crystallarch had become not just his supervisor, but something like a friend. Her massive form was settled on a platform that adjusted to support her weight, and she was reviewing what looked like star charts made of light. "Marcus," she said without looking up. "The human fleet commanders have sent another message demanding your return. They seem to think I am holding you prisoner." Marcus sighed. "I'll send another reply explaining that I'm here by choice. Some of them still don't understand what we're trying to do." "Do you understand what we're trying to do?" Thisara asked, finally turning to look at him. It was a fair question. The past 2 months had been unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. He had learned to communicate through crystal song, a method that involved touching special crystals that amplified thoughts and emotions. He had participated in Zephyrian ceremonies where entire groups would harmonize their thoughts to solve problems together. He had even learned to read the light patterns that Zephyrians used for written communication. "I think," Marcus said carefully, "we're trying to build a bridge between 2 very different ways of seeing the universe." Thisara's crystal body flickered with approval colors. "Exactly. Humans think in straight lines, cause and effect, problem and solution. We think in circles, harmony and resonance, balance and flow. Neither way is wrong, but both are incomplete." Ghislaine clapped its small hands together, making a sound like wind chimes. "Show him the new song, Mother! The one you and crystal friend Marcus made together." Marcus felt a flush of pride. The new song was something they had developed over weeks of work, a communication method that combined human logic with Zephyrian harmony. It allowed both species to share ideas in ways that made sense to everyone involved. "Perhaps later," Thisara said. "First, we have visitors." As if summoned by her words, lights began appearing around the chamber. Marcus recognized the process. More Zephyrians were teleporting in, but these were different from the usual crew members. Their crystal bodies were darker, and their energy fields felt cold and hostile. "High Crystallarch," one of them said in formal tones. "We come representing the War Crystal Council. There are questions about your methods." Marcus felt tension fill the room. Zislin moved closer to him, and he put a protective hand on the child's shoulder. "Speak your questions, Crystal Singer Vorth." Thisara replied calmly. The dark Zephyrian pointed at Marcus. "This soft-flesh creature has learned our sacred ways. It knows our ship designs, our communication methods, our military positions. This is not wisdom. This is foolishness that will lead to our destruction." "Marcus Chen has proven his honor," Thisara said firmly. "He saved my offspring when he could have used Zislin as a hostage or weapon. He seeks peace, not conquest." "Words," another of the visitors spat. "Soft flesh always lies. They pretend friendship while planning betrayal. How long before this one returns to his people with all he has learned?" Marcus stepped forward. "I can speak for myself. I'm not here to spy or gather intelligence for military advantage. I'm here because both our peoples are tired of dying for no good reason." Crystal Singer Vorth's energy field flared with anger. "You speak of peace while your ships continue to attack our outer colonies." "What?" Marcus turned to Thisara, confused. "I thought the fighting had stopped." Thisara's body darkened with what Marcus had learned was her way of showing concern. "There have been incidents. Ships from both fleets engaging in combat despite orders to maintain the ceasefire." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Who's attacking whom?" "Both sides claim the other started it," Thisara admitted. "Each incident leads to revenge attacks. The peace we are building here is being torn apart by those who profit from war." Crystal Singer Vorth moved closer to Marcus, his massive form radiating menace. "Your people cannot be trusted, soft flesh. Perhaps it is time to remind them why they should fear us." "That's exactly the wrong answer," Marcus said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "More violence will only make things worse." "Will it?" Vorth asked. "Or will it end this conflict quickly, before your people can develop counters to our technology?" The chamber suddenly filled with alarms, a deep, harmonic sound that made Marcus's bones vibrate. Emergency lights began flashing, and crew members rushed to their stations. "What's happening?" Marcus asked. Thisara was already connected to the ship's communication system, her body glowing as information flowed through her. "Human attack. Ships have appeared at the edge of this system. They're demanding your immediate return." Marcus's heart sank. "They think you're holding me prisoner." "And they're prepared to use force to get you back," Thisara added grimly. 3 battleships with full weapon loads." Crystal Singer Vorth's energy field blazed with triumph. "You see, your people come with weapons, not words. They prove that soft flesh cannot be trusted." The situation was spiraling out of control fast. Marcus could see months of careful work about to be destroyed by fear and misunderstanding on both sides. "There has to be another way," he said desperately. But even as he spoke, he could see weapons charging on both the human and Zephyrian ships. The war was about to begin again, and this time it might never end. "Thisara," Marcus said urgently, "let me talk to them. Let me try to explain before anyone starts shooting." The High Crystallarch looked at him with something that might have been sadness. "I fear, my friend, that the time for words may be over." Outside the ship's crystal windows, Marcus could see the human fleet forming attack positions, and he was caught in the middle, belonging fully to neither side, trusted completely by no one. The bridge between worlds he had been trying to build was about to be burned by the very people he was trying to save. The main screen in the Zephyrian command center showed 3 human battleships moving into attack formation. Marcus felt his heart racing as he watched his own people prepare to fire on the ship that had become his home. Incoming transmission. "From the human fleet, reported a Zephyrian crew member. "Put it through," Thisara commanded. Admiral Rodriguez's face appeared on the screen, his expression hard and angry. "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Human Colonial Fleet. We demand the immediate return of Commander Marcus Chen. You have 30 minutes to comply before we consider him a hostage and respond accordingly." Marcus stepped forward. "Admiral, I'm not a hostage. I'm here by choice, working on peace negotiations." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Commander Chen, you've been declared missing in action. Intelligence reports suggest you've been brainwashed or coerced. We're here to bring you home. Sir, with respect, I'm exactly where I need to be. The work we're doing here could end this war. The only thing that will end this war," Rodriguez said coldly, "is complete Zephyrian surrender. You have 29 minutes. The screen went dark. Marcus looked around the command center at the Zephyrian crew members, many of whom had become his friends over the past months. Little Zislin was pressed against its mother's side, glowing with fear colors. "They will attack," Crystal Singer Vorth said with satisfaction. "This proves what I have said. Soft flesh cannot be trusted. We should destroy them before they can harm us." "No," Marcus said firmly. "Violence isn't the answer." "Then what do you suggest?" Thisara asked. "My ship carries my offspring and crew members who trust me to protect them. I cannot let them be harmed." Marcus closed his eyes and thought quickly. Everything he had learned over the past months suddenly came together in his mind like puzzle pieces finding their places. "The new song," he said suddenly. "We use the communication system we developed together." Vorth's energy field blazed with anger. "Waste time with experiments while death ships prepare to fire? This is madness." "No," Marcus said, moving to the central Crystal Song platform. "This is the answer we've been looking for all along." He placed his hands on the communication crystals and felt the familiar tingle as the system connected with his thoughts. But instead of sending a normal message, he began broadcasting using the hybrid method he and Thisara had developed, human logic combined with Zephyrian harmony. "Admiral Rodriguez," Marcus's voice carried across space with a musical quality that no human communication system could produce, "I need you to listen not just with your ears, but with your heart." On the screen, Admiral Rodriguez looked confused. "Commander, what kind of equipment are you using?" "I'm using a bridge, sir. A bridge between two ways of understanding the universe." Marcus felt Thisara join the communication link, her massive consciousness harmonizing with his thoughts. "Let me show you what I've learned." Through the Crystal Song connection, Marcus began sharing not just words, but emotions and experiences. He showed Admiral Rodriguez the fear in little Zisselin's eyes when trapped under the rubble and the gratitude that followed rescue. He shared the loneliness of Zephyrian soldiers far from home, missing their crystal families. He revealed the grief of parents on both sides who had lost children to this endless war. What is this?" Admiral Rodriguez asked, his voice shaking slightly. "This is what the enemy feels," Marcus said gently. "This is what they dream about, what they fear, what they love. They're not monsters, Admiral. They're people, just like us, who got scared and started fighting because no one knew how to talk to each other." Through the connection, Marcus felt something incredible happening. Other Zephyrian crew members were joining the link, adding their own thoughts and emotions to the broadcast. On the human ships, he could sense confusion giving way to understanding, as human crew members felt genuine alien emotion for the first time. "Sir," came a voice from one of Admiral Rodriguez's officers, "I'm getting reports from all decks. The crew they're saying they can feel what the aliens are feeling." Crystal Singer Vorth tried to interrupt the connection, but Zisselin surprised everyone by adding its young voice to the harmony. The child's simple, innocent thoughts about wanting to play with human children instead of hiding from human weapons cut through Vorth's anger like light through darkness. "This is impossible," Admiral Rodriguez whispered. "How are you doing this?" "We're doing what should have been done 3 years ago," Marcus replied. "We're actually listening to each other." Through the Crystal Song Network, Marcus felt minds connecting across the void of space. Human engineers were sharing technical knowledge with Zephyrian crystal singers. Zephyrian artists were showing human soldiers the beauty of harmony-based thinking. Fear was being replaced by curiosity, hatred by understanding. But suddenly, alarms began sounding on both human and Zephyrian ships. "New contacts approaching," reported Thysera's tactical officer. "Multiple ships from both fleets, hardliner factions. They're targeting all vessels in this system." Marcus realized with growing horror that extremists from both sides had decided to destroy anyone involved in peace talks. Ships loyal to Crystal Singer Vorth's war faction were approaching from one direction, while human vessels commanded by officers who wanted total victory approached from another. "They're going to try to kill all of us," Marcus said. "Anyone who believes in peace is their enemy." Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system. "Commander Chen, I'm reading at least 20 ships total, all armed for maximum destruction. They mean to end this negotiation permanently." Marcus looked at Thysara, then at the mixed human and Zephyrian crew members around him. "Then we show them what cooperation can accomplish." What happened next had never been attempted before in the history of either species. Human tactical systems merged with Zephyrian harmony networks. Human creativity combined with Zephyrian precision. Human adaptability joined with Zephyrian unity. The defensive battle that followed was unlike anything ever seen. Human ships provided rapid response firepower, while Zephyrian vessels created protective energy fields. Human engineers worked directly with Zephyrian crystal singers to coordinate shield frequencies. Tactical information flowed instantly between all allied ships through the Crystal Song network. The extremist forces, expecting to fight separate enemies, found themselves facing something entirely new: a unified fleet that combined the best abilities of both species. Their attacks, designed to exploit the weaknesses of either humans or Zephyrians alone, failed against defenses that covered each other's vulnerabilities. Within hours, the extremist ships were either retreating or surrendering. Many of their crews, experiencing the Crystal Song connection for the first time, asked to join the alliance rather than continue fighting. As the battle ended, Marcus stood on the bridge of Thysara's flagship, watching human and Zephyrian children, playing together through holographic links between the ships. Admiral Rodriguez had agreed to stay and learn more about the new communication methods. Crystal Singer Vorth had reluctantly admitted that cooperation might have benefits after all. "You did something remarkable today," Thysara said, her massive hand resting gently on Marcus's shoulder in the gesture he had come to recognize as deep affection. "We all did it together," Marcus replied, watching Zislin teach human children how to sing in crystal harmonics. "That's the point." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the first integrated colony built by both species working together. Human engineering and Zephyrian crystal growing had created something beautiful, cities that grew like living things, but functioned with human efficiency. He watched children of both species playing games that combined human imagination with Zephyrian harmony. Their laughter and songs created something entirely new, a sound that represented hope for a future where former enemies had become family. Thysara approached, her crystal body reflecting the light of both human and Zephyrian suns. "The Council of Worlds has approved the permanent alliance," she said. "Both our peoples will explore the galaxy together now, as partners rather than enemies." Marcus smiled as he watched the children play. "One small choice," he said quietly, "can change everything." "Yes," Thysara agreed, her voice carrying the warm harmonics of deep contentment. "You saved one child and taught 2 species how to save themselves." In the distance, human and Zephyrian ships flew together toward new stars, their crews sharing dreams of discovery rather than conquest. The war was finally over, and peace had begun.